Lonnie, wonderful. And I think just on the previous slide, we had some very good mindfulness practices and techniques for studying. And of course, we have a big student community in the Student Success Coach. So I'm sure lots of people today on the call that are keen to apply mindfulness techniques to their studies in the year ahead. So I think that'll be very useful. But then, as you mentioned, obviously lots of application into the workplace, and many people are studying part-time and working, and all those boundaries are blurred. So it just feels to me like this course covers so many bases and so many practical ideas and approaches for people to take into so many different areas of their lives to achieve that more richly textured moment that you sort of talk so passionately about. And then, Milani, I did a couple of lessons in the course. I don't know whether you want to talk about those. I'll bring them up onto the screen just now. The one that I'm thinking of is, as we mentioned earlier, hybrid working. So maybe you just want to kick us off on hybrid working, and I'll stick that up on the course for people just to have a look at and get a sense of the lessons that I've contributed into the course. So maybe let's just touch on that aspect and your thoughts on my lessons, perhaps. What did you think, and any advice that you have to me about being more mindful, with a busy family and a demanding career and trying to achieve the sort of hybrid working environment that I talk about in the course?
Yeah, my advice in terms of hybrid working is I think that it's very the challenge is self-management in terms of our working environment these days. And so I believe that we need to start with being intentional about creating better containers of focus for ourselves. But then also, I believe that there's a balance that needs to happen in terms of the busyness and then using some of the mindful tools to almost recharge our batteries, to disconnect from this constant connectivity, etc. And then in terms of hybrid working specifically, I believe that there's a big call for being more aware of your own, uh, almost your state of being in terms of how are you being focused? Are you paying attention to the Zoom call that you are on? And checking in and settling into the space that you're in terms of that, so that you are present with that, because it's very easy to get distracted and to get almost like this thing of Zoom fatigue, etc. So my advice would be to be a lot more intentional in terms of um, creating that balance and creating our containers for what we are doing in the moment, a bit more in a focused, in a focused and structured way, I would suggest. But your
Super.
lessons were good.
Thank you, Melanie. I appreciate that. I mean, one of the insights that I gave was, as you were mentioning, the importance of having that connection. Because as I've realized, and I facilitate a lot of workshops, it's not just that individuals are working in a hybrid form, and maybe 2 or 3 days in the office, 2 or 3 days at home, but also that in every meeting and interaction, there's a degree of hybrid working because some people are at home, some people are at work. So we're never going to get away from this 100% all physically present or 100% all distributed. So I talk about some of the challenges there. And the one key tip that I sort of, given the course and I'd sort of reinforce today as well is that as much as you can plan and anticipate your own pattern, you can reduce the stress and the agitation that comes from the unknown aspects of hybrid working. And so if you create your rhythm or your pattern and you think about it for the week ahead or the next couple of weeks, perhaps during the day there might be some degree of uncertainty, but at least you've done what you can to think ahead and to plan ahead, and that'll reduce a huge degree of stress that perhaps will, impact on your ability to be mindful and present in each of the moments